Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to episode 19. I should really check that. It might be 20. Who knows? I should know. I should know. Let's call it 19 for now, and I'll make sure I put it right in the title. Welcome to episode 19 or 20 of the Brew from the Bothy podcast. Hello, and thank you for coming to spend some time with me. Hopefully you have a brew in hand and you're having a little bit of time out, and maybe you're crafting with me. That would be rather nice. If I could craft and talk properly at the same time, I would craft with you, but it's beyond me, so I won't do that to you because you maybe want some coherent sentences. I'm Fay and I'm a crochet knitwear designer in Cheshire in England, and welcome to my little space on the internet. It's really nice to have you with me. Right, let's crack on. I have been all over the place the last 2 weeks. I've been having a right old woolly time of it, and I've got some videos to share with you and some bits and pieces that I've bought. I need to stop buying stuff now. I don't think I will, but I really should be reining it in now, but it shows no signs of me doing that. Right, let's have a look at what is on my hook. And the actual response to that is pretty much nothing. I've got things that I am trying to get onto my hook, but they're taking a little bit more time than I had hoped. I'm in the middle of a design which I'm very, very excited for. I have to have it done before pretty much the end of the year, first week of January. So I'm putting quite a lot of time into that. But with that design, I'm finally managing to get my hook into the Kinross 4-ply by Wee County Yarns. I love this yarn. It really plumps up when you've washed and blocked it. And it's got a lovely high twist on it, which makes it perfect for crocheting and for knitting. And that colour is just divine. The colour is, it says Highland Cow on the back of it because I put the wrong label back on it. But the colour is actually called Scots Pine, and it really is that underbelly of Scots Pine needles that you get. It is that beautiful kind of muted greyish blue colour. On their website it doesn't look this colour, it looks a lot darker, and that maybe would put you off, but this is the actual colour it is, and it's just beautiful. So I'm really enjoying going through this design. I'm on a bit of a deadline with it as ever, but I love that. I can't show you the other colour that I'm pairing with it, but let's just say my go-to mid-century colour is like a proper vintage look, and the design that I'm doing is kind of supersizing a design element in homage to somebody, and I think I'm going to call the top homage, and I don't know yet whether it's going to have sleeves on it or if I'm going to do it as a tank top, because I think it would suit both. I'm gonna grade it, get it to the bit where the arms would be, and then take a decision on how it looks from there. But I'm enjoying this design, but I really want to get other things on my hooks. If you haven't been with me before, you haven't been a long time viewer, and you don't know me from the Crochet Circle podcast, a few years back I became quite a monogamous crafter. So I stopped having multiple projects on the go, and generally, work projects aside, I have one knitting project and one crochet project on the go at the same time for personal. Sometimes I'll also have a pair of socks on the go, knitted or crocheted, just because they're really portable and they're usually quicker to do and a bit more mindless. So if I've got a bit of a mind boggle project on the go for knitting, I might also have a pair of knitted socks on the go, vice versa for crochet. So I'm kind of desperate to get something on my hooks because there's nothing on there. So let me show you. Last time I let off, I said, that's not a good sentence structure. I mean, I do fart, but I didn't let off on the podcast. Last time I podcasted, I said I was going to make this, which is the Coast Sweater by Jeanette at Air Crochet. And I said I was going to do it in the West Yorkshire Spinners their Wool Revival, which is their recycled yarn. And I started swatching for it, and as much as I really love this wool, it's just creating such structured stitches, and you can see every stitch and you can see every row. And what I particularly love about this jumper, when I knew I wasn't happy with the swatch, and when I went back and referenced the photos and the pattern itself, one of the things I really love about this is the slight haziness that you get to it. So this is not working up in the same way. I'm not getting that haze. Sorry, I'm really battling light today. It's grey out there. You can see it a little better there. If not, I'll pop a photo up. But I'm not getting that haziness with the West Yorkshire Spinners Revival. So this is getting frogged, and I wanted to find another yarn that would give me that haziness on the finished make. So I went down. I'll talk a little bit more about it at the end, and I will also pop some video in, because one of my woolly travels was to go to the River Knits Open Day, which is their Christmas one, which is called Stollen and Vala, so basically cake and wool. And while I was there, I saw Ishrat from Fruitful Fusions, and Ishrat had been crocheting up my strata cardigan in a newish yarn base that she's got. The base is she's called it Caviar Bark, and the colourway that I am looking at is called Ocean, which is the perfect name for it. And basically, let me show you up a strand of it. It's got that floofiness to it, which will do what I need it to do for this pattern. And so I bought a jumper coat today. It is baby alpaca and 51% baby alpaca, 49% Pima cotton. And I think the way that the strand works is that the alpaca is all on the outer and the cotton is kind of blown into the chain on the inside. This is coming out at a heavyish sport weight, so it's 300 meters per 100 grams. There, if I hold it up towards the other part of my wall, you can see just how floofy it is. But also the cotton doesn't take the dye in the same way, so you get this real tonal effect coming through in the yarn. The swatch that, well, not the swatch, the project that Ishrat had on the go, she was using it in it's a kind of light olivey green colour for my strata cardigan, and it just was so airy and drapey. It was absolutely beautiful. And we were stood listening to Susan Crawford. Yes, Susan Crawford was there giving a talk. Amazing. And whilst I was there, I was kind of also looking around. You know, I love to do two things at once, apart from talk to you and crochet or knit. And I saw the swatch that Ishrat had, and I also saw that she had just 4 skeins of this left, which is pretty much what I needed. So I got it. Now, I love this yarn. I love the dyeing, but I just don't think it's going to work for this project because of the dark to the light. My feeling is, and I think I'm right, and in fact I know I'm right, for me, for my style, this jumper wants to be self-coloured, one colour. Any tonal shifts in it I think need to be minimal, and I just think that this is too much, which I'm gutted about. So I now need to find another project for this, because I love it and it is so warm and just like, it feels like a wisp of cloud. There's nothing to it. So I know I could do something really open and structured with it. My brain is now going to like a hat, crocheted large shawl hat, I think would be amazing in this. I would need to get the right stitch so that I don't have big long colour blobs in the lighter versus the dark, but I'm pretty sure I can find something that will work for this yarn. So I've now done 2 swatches. and neither of them are going to fulfill my needs for this project. Now, before I bought this yarn, I was on Yarn Sub looking for something that would be like the Istex Plotaloopy plates, which is what this version's been made in. And I found one, where is it? Is it it's not Fade? Yeah, it's Navia is the brand, and I think they're on the Faroe Islands. So they had the most beautiful dark teal blue colour, like right up my street, but shipping was €35. So me being me, I was being tight and I didn't want to pay for that. And so instead I spent £80 on yarn here. Like I probably could have just shortcutted this scenario and maybe bought the Navia yarn. But I was very pleased to be able to support Ishrat's business, and I'll find another deal for this. So now I'm back to, like, a little bit back to the drawing board, and I think I really want to make this, so I think I need to go back and get the Navia yarn. I can get undyed colours pretty easily from mainland Europe, but Navia do nicer colours than them. They're beautiful, but my mind is really quite set on this being in that dark teal blue. So we all know what's going to happen. I most likely would finish podcasting and get straight onto the Navia website and buy a jumper quantity of yarn. Because I have a vision and I'm not willing to part from that vision. So in case you're unaware of Yarn Sub and what that is, basically if you can't get hold of the yarn that a pattern suggests, or it's not within your price range, you might want to spend more, you might want to spend less, there is a website that I will link to below that has a lot of yarns within their database, and you can put in whatever the yarn is within the pattern and it will spit out other yarn suggestions based on meterage, on blend, all sorts of factors, and therefore you then have a list and you don't have to keep on scrolling the internet to try and find a good match. I'm pretty sure that most of you have heard of Yarn Subs, but you never know. Some people might not have. So I'll link it below for you and you can have a look. My coast saga will continue. Let's see where I get to in 2 weeks' time. Navia yarn in my future for sure, I think. Right, I've got so much stuff, I'm just going to talk to you and then put it over here. If you've got any suggestions for this, I would love to hear them because I want to use this yarn. It's beautiful to work with, but it's not going to be a coast sweater. The next thing that I also need to get onto my hooks is a present for my mum. She did that thing where she told me, oh, I saw there was a little neckerchief that I saw on sea salt and Cornwall, but it was £30 and I don't want to spend £30 on it. And I just let the sentence drop, and it was never followed up with a, would you like me to make you one? So I left it for a few weeks, and then when I was at the River Knits Open Day, the Strong and Vola Day, I picked up 3 mini skeins of a colour that I know will work with a lot of my mum's wardrobe. She has very white hair and she wears a lot of corally pinks, which this will do, and a lot of teals and blues. So I feel like this will go right the way across her wardrobe. She also does rusty browns and like dark brown. To be fair, she and I have very similar colour sensibilities. And whilst I maybe wouldn't wear this as much, this is a red that I actually can get away with. It suits my mum better. She's more tan skin than I am. I take after my dad, and I'm just like really Peel Valley white. That's me. So I'm going to make my mum the necktie version of my One Way or Another, because although the necktie that she saw was knitted, I kind of wanted to prove a point to her that crochet can be beautiful and that it can be just as gorgeous as a knitted version. So my mum's birthday is towards the end of December. She's one of those unfortunate people that has a birthday just a few days before Christmas Day. And so I want to do this specifically for her birthday. I'm hoping to get this on my hooks in the next couple of days. So by the time I come back in 2 weeks' time, hopefully you'll see a little bit of progress for this, but in a necktie version, not the cowl version. But just in case you haven't seen one way or another, I just wanted to show you how the crochet stitch works up, because it's like a little bit of filet, but it has a bit of a knit look. And I developed this kind of border that looks a bit like an I-cord edge to it. So this should in theory be a really quick thing to make, and I have a deadline, and I love a deadline. So I think that is all the crochet stuff that I can update you on. There 100% is a lot more stuff going on in the background, but they're not things that I can tell you about yet. And I'll tell you when I can tell you. Right, let's have a slurp. And then what do I need to go on to? We're into Off My Needles. It's still wet, which is why I'm not wearing it. Is my Rihi jumper. Let me make sure it's got front to back. It's freaking massive. It blocked out and it grew and it grew and it grew. And even though my little swatch didn't do that, the final jumper did. Shall I put it on for you quickly? Let's go. So it's way bigger than I had anticipated it being. I wonder if I also just have like a little bit of sometimes a body dysmorphia thing going on. Which means that it's bigger at the neck than I wanted. It's got a bigger drop on the sleeves than I wanted. That looks wonky. Why are you wonky? It's the other way. And the length is good. Like I wanted a big chunky jumper, but it means that when I move, the whole thing goes up because I've got such an excess in the armhole. Now I kind of don't mind, because the whole point about this was it was just a very relaxed fit, slouchy, in the house, country walks kind of a jumper. However, it has blocked out to such a degree that I'm not sure how warm it's going to be on the country walk. It'll be warm in the house. I really love the feel of the fabric, and I did a slightly different arm detail and pulled it in for a bit of a balloon sleeve. But there is the daring little voice on my shoulder is saying, put it through the tumble dryer. Let's see what happens. And like the other part of me is going, don't be ridiculous. You have spent hours on this. Don't you dare jeopardize a fully knitted jumper. And it's like I would still wear this, the size that it is. It's nice and long, but I just feel like it looks like I got my dad's jumper and I'm wearing it. That's how I feel. Does anybody have any experience of tumble drying drops soft tweed? It does have alpaca in it, which traditionally has not fared well for me in terms of washing and felting. So I could just I might put the swatch through the washing machine and see what that does, because it's got such an open texture that I mean it can't felt that much, but I do sensible size says don't be ridiculous, don't wash it, just wear it. The little imp is going, you can just knit more stuff, you can just crochet more stuff, just test it and try and make it into something like what does it matter? And then this one is going, well, waste of time put into it and the resources you put into it. I don't really want to rip it back. So any suggestions beyond the ones that I've already got? I'd really in particular love to hear if you have got any experience with drops soft tweed. Did you get the same thing? Have you had any remedies for it? It really has blocked out way more than my swatch did, which I would expect to go a little bit more because of the weight of it, but I handled it very, very carefully through blocking. I was not wringing it, I was very gentle with it, and it has just stretched and stretched beyond where I was hoping it would be, really. But that's life. That's the life of somebody who makes things. I now have a slightly damp top as well because it is not properly dried. Yeah, I'd love your suggestions if you've got any for me, other than maybe I do just need to have less positive ease in the things I'm making. So for instance, the jumper that I'm just putting back on, I really love the fit of this. It just skims over my waist. It's the right length to it. I like how it fits over my body generally. I love the arm length about it. Like, it's one of my favourite jumpers to wear. If you haven't seen the detail, I also embroidered a massive moth on the back of it, which just brings me joy. And I very stupidly, because it catches me out all the time, I don't really like spiders, and I embroidered a little beetle on the front of it, and every time I wear it I forget that I embroidered the beetle. And even today, like before I started recording, I was like, oh, I've got something on my jumper, and pulled it up and gave myself a shock because there was a beetle on it. I think I was probably trying to do like shock therapy so that I can get over spiders. I don't think it's working, but I'm not going to take it off. He's good. Yeah, so I know it's different. I know this is a panelled jumper versus a yoked jumper, straddled colour work. Maybe I just don't suit yoked jumpers. That is a possibility. I know this one is, the Rehe one is much bigger, but genuinely maybe yoked jumpers just aren't for me, and pieced or modified drop shoulder or drop shoulders are what I need to be making for myself. Maybe I should go to a big department store and just try on all of their clothes without buying anything, just to make sure that I'm right in my thinking of what it is that suits me, and then just stick to that rather than putting hours and hours worth of work. Yeah, like what? That's a great idea. Right, somewhere like Marks and Spencer's, where I can go to a really big store. Maybe that's what I need to do, and try different sizes, try the positive ease, negative ease, and all the different types of jumpers that there are. Bingo, that's what I will do. Sorry, you just literally saw my brain engaging and working through an issue there. Well, do any of you do that? Like, has anybody else gone and done that? So you're then setting yourself up for less failure in your crafting activities? Probably have, and I'm just behind the times and just thought about it. Right, so Rehe is off. It still needs to dry properly, and possibly something else happened to it. I really don't want to rip it back, but if the swatch doesn't do what I expect the swatch to do, either in the washing machine or the tumble dryer, then I might rip it back. Let's see. I then also have two other things, much like the crochet, because we're coming into like making season. I'm having to stop my monogamous approach and have a couple of smaller projects on the go. So with knitting, I need to get cracking with the second version of my spiritual cowl for my friend. So my version, it got really chilly here in the last couple of weeks, because we had this like Arctic blast that was coming through, and it was actually really cold. I think the lowest, when I was dropping Matthew off at the train station at 6 a.m, it was -3. That's a bit chilly. And when I was going and doing that, I was putting on my version of that cowl, and I've been wearing it in town as well, and it's so snuggly and warm. I just like, I want loads of them now, so I'm going to really enjoy making this one for my friend Jenny. I'm using 2 yarns held together. The proper woolly wool is Colour Lab DK by West Yorkshire Spinners. Can I get your colour reference? Probably. It's called Very Berry. Very appropriate. And then the floof is by Lang, and it is their Zen yarn, and that one doesn't have a colour reference, but it is 35% merino, 35% alpaca, 30% silk. So it's a slightly different floof from like your standard mohair. It's got a little bit more fibre and quite a thick core to it. To be honest, it's like a thinner version of the Fruitful Fusions yarn that I was showing you for my Coast sweater. It's really not dissimilar in that you can see some of the core because it doesn't take the dye in the same way. That's the silk, I believe. And then you've got this floofiness coming off of it. So this needs to get underway tonight because it's cabled. And that's the first like festive present on its way, ready to make. Now, my friend Jenny did message me the other day saying, I have been trying to cull all of my knitted accessories, and even after that I've only managed to get rid of one hat, and I still have 9 hats, and I think it was 10 cowls. I was like, oh, shame because you're getting another one. Like, tough luck, I'm still making you one. I know that she'll be really excited about this one, and I might do her, if I've got enough yarn left over, not quite a matching hat, but a cabled hat. I've got one that I wear all the time, all winter long, and every time I wear it in front of Jenny, I see her covetous eyes staring at it. So I'm going to do her a slightly thicker version that would match her cowl, if I have time and if I have enough yarn. So this also needs to get on my needles and get going because, festivities are fast approaching. What else do we do? Also that I bought at River Knits was, I mentioned that Susan Crawford was there. Let me just grab a book. I think some of you may have come across Susan Crawford. She did this amazing piece of work with the Vintage Shetland project, and it was an absolute labour of love. She spent many days, if not weeks, up in Shetland in the Textiles Museum looking through the archived colour work and patterns, the many that they have up there, and she was basically decoding them to code out the patterns and the colours and the techniques that were used. And she chose specific pieces and basically had them remade and put them all into this book with the stories behind each of the pieces as well. So when I was at the River Knit Strollen and Vola open day, Susan was there and she had a beautiful stand with all of her yarns and her patterns and her books. And she was also doing a talk on this and some of her other books. She really loves vintage knitting patterns and like bringing a new life to them. You can still get this book, I believe. Mine is one of the original hardbacks, as I was a Kickstarter supporter way back in the day for this book. But I saw this one. Look at this beautiful cardigan. I spied that today. Now, what that means is, yes, I've had this book for ages. I haven't really cracked the spine of it, and hearing Susan's talk the other week made me think that this is, I got this out the pile today as a little memoir, aid memoir, to keep it out on the dining table and make sure that I just keep on sitting down at the weekends with a cup of tea, going through it and reading some of the stories, because the stories that Susan was giving in her talk were really interesting about some of the characters who wore the jumpers or were the knitters of them, and it was just a really enjoyable experience listening to her. So when she had finished, I bought her book Echoes, partly because, well, I mean, it's beautiful and there are a number of things that I want to wear in here, including this shawl, which I got the kit for. I'll show you another photo of it so you can see it close up. But again, this is going to be for my mum. I don't know if it's something that she'll wear out of the house, but I figured she's got a particular spot that she sits in the house at night, and she quite often gets a little bit chilly, and I figured it would be quite a nice thing for her to wrap around her shoulders and keep warm, like the little old granny that she is. Susan was wearing this cardigan, and when I said earlier about my mid-century modern sensibilities, these are my colours. This is what makes me tick, basically. And because she was wearing that cardigan and it was in this book, and it all just meant that I had to buy the book. Look, there are the colours. That's it as a tank, which is what I think I'm going to knit. So she's done it as a tank and a cardigan. So, love the book. Pick that up. But I also picked up the kit for the Weather House shawl. So this is one I showed you a minute ago. There's a close-up for you. The photography is lovely. It doesn't do the actual shawl justice though. Like when you see it up close, it was colours that I never would have pulled together. Not in my wildest dreams, but it really works. I'm okay at choosing colours. Like I can do it for a multicoloured project, but I wouldn't have chosen all of these to go together. And I think there's a real skill in that, and I think when you do a lot of stranded colour work or Fair Isle, I think you get really good at choosing colours and getting some little outliers like that. This red, and that yellow, I probably would never have put them together. I mean, I absolutely adore this dark greeny blue and the little coral blip. And even now looking at them together, I never would have gone, yep, you're my project. And yet when you see it all together, it just looks amazing. Like I say, this really is not doing it justice. So I also need to get a Weather House on my needles for my mum. I'm not entirely sure this will be done for Christmas, but I saw it, I saw the colours, I wanted to support a small business, and I was looking for something for my mum for Christmas anyway, and she's very much a handcrafter. She can turn her hands to anything. She was very definitely born with the I can do that gene, and she and my dad passed that to me, like, just give it a crack, see where you get to. So although my mum is a very good crafter, she's currently, just to give context, my mum is 81 and is currently carving a 6-foot totem pole that she wants to put in the garden. That's the kind of I can do anything gene that my mum has. So while she can turn her hands to most things, she's not a really keen knitter. She can knit and she can crochet, but it's not the stuff that she goes to. She much prefers her art to be other things. Like, she is a really good artist as well, like genuinely painting and drawing artist. So I know she'll appreciate this, and I need to get it on my needles, and also I'm quite excited to get it on my needles as well. So another thing that I need to make for somebody for a present. But I'm excited about the things that I'm making. Otherwise I wouldn't make them. I just wouldn't do it. Let's move this pile over. And what do we have left? I spoke about the Rivernets open day. I'm going to pop some video up so you can have a look at it. They tend to have an open day. Their place is down in Northamptonshire. It's pretty quick to get to once you're off the motorway, which is the M6, I think. Don't trust me on that. And from where I am in Cheshire, it's about a 2-hour journey for me to get there, maybe slightly less. So it's doable for me, a day there and there and back in a day. And they invite all sorts of other vendors to come and be there. The local coffee house, which is called Yellow Bourbon, come and they do amazing coffee. And Becky and Marcus do some live music. I'm going to pop a little bit of that up at the very end as well, so you can see that. So if I don't got all the footage in now, I'll pop that bit at the end and you can have a look and see what the what the Stollen and Vollo show was all about. But generally they have a late spring, summertime show, which is usually in about May time. And then they have this winter one. And it was just really nice and chilled out. And I got to speak to lots of vendors and have a little look at what people had brought. It was good. And then the other thing that I did was I headed up. I had to take a bit of kit that I was selling up to Zoe at the Wool List. Zoe works with Maria Benjamin, who does, they both combined do the Wool Library. They also have the Cumbria Tweed Project. The two people that have come together with a farming background and a love of wool, and Zoe, who has done a PhD in the 72 British breeds of sheep in the UK. So for my money, I told her this and she was like, I don't think I am, but I think Zoe is probably our most knowledgeable person in the UK about sheep breeds, about the application of those wools in an industry context for hand knit and for crochet, but also for textiles and for industry, and trying to marry people up. So with her and Maria working together, they're doing a great job to get British wool highlighted and actually used within our industry in the UK. I'll pop links below of some of the different projects that they're on. So you've got the I said Cumbria Tweed, it's not, it's the Lake District Tweed Company. Amazing tweeds made where they are locally within the Lake District and using British wool. We're about to actually have our sofas reupholstered. I won't bore you with the detail, but we need to have them reupholstered. We've got horrible covers on them at the moment. I've just spoken to the upholsterer and we are going to recover them in Maria and Zoe's Lake District Tweed. They've got a beautiful blue colour. Who knew I would go for a blue coloured sofa? So we're going to be using it for that, so they can do it for like fabric for clothing, but also they have fabric that is thick enough for upholstery. It's absolutely stunning. And they have blankets. So if you're in need of some little special treats for people that really understand like good provenance of products, I would have a look at the Lake District Trade. And then they also have the Wool Library, where they do things like Maria started out with the soap dairy, where she makes soap and wool wash. Actually, what I think is the best wool wash in the UK. You can have it with or without lanolin, and it's in a bar, so you don't have loads of packaging on it, and it lasts a very long time. But she's now also making candles. So I picked up while I was up there. It's called Travel Light Lake District Candles, and this one is called Log Cabin, and it's like a little Christmas scented log cabin. That was £5 for that, which is a really good deal, I think, for a candle in a tin. And then the tin afterwards will be a notions tin for me, so no wastage. And then the other thing that I picked up, so here's an example of some of their Lake District Tweed. It's all those lovely mossy colours, and it's a little sock project bag with a leather tab on it, and I think that was £18, which is again like ridiculous for something that is totally made in the UK. Box bottom bag with really good quality zip on it, what I think is a waxed liner. Like, it was just really good quality, and they've got all sorts of bits. So if you need some suggestions of some nice little projects for crafters, not projects but things to buy, maybe you're on the lookout and somebody's asked you what you would like as a present over Christmas, I would go and have a little look at what they're up to. Their provenance is second to none. They know where everything's come from, and they're working with local people, and you're supporting people in the UK and supporting British jobs, which is always a good thing. So have a look at, there's the tag for it, Lake District Tweed. But again, I'll pop some video up of where they're up to. They have quite a large scale knitting machine, and they make hats. So there's all sorts of stuff there, and they make it all out of all of the different British breeds. It was a real creative top up, because these two are so good at seeing how the industry could be shifted, getting funding for it and making that shift. So it was a really good time for me to go up there and go, yeah, it is possible to make changes and to do really good things within like the handcrafting industry. So I'll pop some links below in case you're interested. Obviously I spent some money, but I'm always happy to support local people and indie businesses. It's where most of our money goes. That is it from me. You got all sorts in that. I bet you didn't expect half of that stuff. It's lovely. Thank you for being here with me and for keeping on coming back. I will be back in 2 weeks' time with maybe some actual projects on the go to show you, and maybe a felted reiki. Who knows? We'll see. Until then, thank you so much. Hit the like button. Tap me up in comments. I want to know what you're up to. What are you making? What are you doing? What yarn are you using? Do you have a yarn suggestion for me for my coast jumper that isn't Navia? Let me know. Lovely to see you all. Thank you for being here. I am waving.